Hey, this video will be super quick. We're just going to talk about the built-in array.sort. So in JavaScript, every array has a built-in way to sort it. Yes, it does. Thank you, slides. But it doesn't always work how you would expect it should. For example, take this array of strings. We sort it, and I think this makes sense. We get the result that you would probably expect. They're sorted alphabetically. So A for algorithms, then C, then D for data structures, and then steal. That makes sense, I think, to go from A down to Z, or up to Z, whatever. We're going from A to Z. Then if we do the same thing with numbers, 6, 4, 15, and 10, and you sort it, what we get doesn't really make sense. So it starts with 10, and then 15, then 4, then 6. So it would be one thing if it was just the opposite order, like if it was descending instead of ascending, greatest to lowest instead of lowest to highest, but it's not even ordered in any discernible way that we can make sense of, no numeric order. What's actually happening is if we read the array sort documentation on MDN, is that, here we go, the default sort order is according to string Unicode code points. So there's this thing called Unicode used to represent strings, and what happens is that every item in that array is converted to a string, and then the Unicode value of that is taken, and then they're sorted. So it's very bizarre, and it's almost never what you want, unless you're working with strings to start, but even then, it's not always what you want. So how does it actually work? How do we use it in the real world? That's only what happens, that's the behavior when you don't pass anything in. You just do .sort with empty parens. But there's this whole other thing we can do, where we can actually specify how it should sort, what property it should sort by, what to compare. So it accepts an optional comparator function, and we can use this to tell JavaScript how we want it to sort. So basically, the structure that we write this function is, it takes two items, which we'll call A and B, and we tell JavaScript the sort order to make based off of what we return. So if we return a negative number, so if we have two elements, again, A and B, JavaScript's going to call this function every time it's comparing two elements. If this function returns a negative number, then JavaScript will decide that A comes before B. If it returns a positive number, then it's the other way around. A comes after B. And if we return 0, JavaScript treats A and B as the same and just sorts them basically together. It doesn't matter. So here's an example. Number compare is what we called our comparator function. And all we're doing is returning num1 minus num2. So JavaScript gets this. Remember, this is what comes first, this is what comes second. If this returns a negative value, then num1 comes first before num2. If it returns a positive value, then num2 comes first and then num1. So when we do this, you can see that it's now sorting things appropriately in ascending numeric order. So we get 4 and then 6 and then 10 and then 15. And I have it over in a snippet here. So if I run it, that's a little big, there we go. So if I run this now, you'll see that we get 4, 6, 10, 15. But if I just change this order, so num2 minus num1, for example, we get 15, 10, 6, and 4. So that's sorting just by numbers, which that's what you would do if you're trying to sort something numerically, rather than working, the Unicode characters and worrying about all of that. We could also do something like this, to sort by the length of a string. Rather than alphabetically, we want to sort from whatever the shortest string is, so colt, up until the longest string, which would be data structures. So we do the same thing, string1.length minus string2.length. And we call this compare by len, but remember, it doesn't matter what we call this, it's just a random function. But it needs to accept these two arguments, and then we use them in here, and we return a negative number, a positive number, or 0. So what do we get? There we go. And if we swapped it around, change the order, string2.length minus string1.length, now we have the other order. So this is how we can define our own basic sorts using the built-in JavaScript sort method. Now I just showed that to you so that you know that it exists and it's an option. Now what we'll focus on in the rest of this section is writing our own sorting algorithms that actually do the comparisons. That's the hard part. And so that's coming up next. We're going to kick it off with a fan favorite. It's not a fan favorite, but it has a fun name, bubble sort. See you in the next video.